Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Sophia, and today we are going on a little adventure together because today's topic is English conversations while traveling.
And honestly, traveling creates the funniest English situations ever. Airports, hotels, maps, luggage, and emotional confusion everywhere constantly, especially when people are tired and hungry publicly.
Before we begin, let me ask everybody something honestly. Have you ever felt nervous speaking English while traveling somewhere, even asking simple questions at airports or hotels?
Oh yes, absolutely. One time, I became so nervous at an airport emotionally, I accidentally walked into the staff-only area very confidently.
That honestly sounds deeply concerning publicly. And listeners, today's episode will help you avoid travel disasters like that. You will learn useful English for real travel situations.
And honestly, travel English is extremely important for learners because traveling forces people into real conversations very quickly publicly. There is no time for perfect grammar during airport chaos.
Exactly. And today's episode is one long travel story, too. Listeners are basically traveling with us throughout this entire episode together. And honestly, our trip became chaotic almost immediately afterward.
Because apparently, peace disappears whenever I travel anywhere emotionally. Airports honestly become dramatic adventure movies around me somehow. Even suitcases start emotionally judging my decisions publicly.
All right, listeners, imagine this scene carefully with us today. It is 5 o'clock in the morning at a huge airport. The sky is still dark and people look extremely sleepy.
And honestly, airports before sunrise feel emotionally strange somehow. Everybody walks around carrying coffee and quiet emotional stress publicly. Even escalators sound tired during early mornings, honestly.
Meanwhile, I arrived at the airport very organized and peaceful. And honestly, Henry arrived looking completely emotionally destroyed afterward publicly. His hoodie looked confused and his hair looked exhausted somehow.
Because waking up early feels personally disrespectful, honestly. My alarm clock honestly ruined my emotional stability that morning publicly. Travel excitement had not emotionally arrived yet somehow.
Then, honestly, Henry looked at Sophia and asked a simple question casually. I said, "Did you get any sleep?" Listeners, this phrase is extremely common during travel conversations.
Exactly. People ask this question constantly during early flights publicly, usually because everybody looks emotionally damaged before morning coffee somehow. Airports honestly reveal humanity at its weakest moments.
Then, honestly, Henry sighed dramatically before answering me afterward publicly. He looked deeply betrayed by the existence of mornings emotionally. And honestly, this next phrase is super useful for learners.
I looked at Sophia and said, "Not even a little." Listeners, this phrase means absolutely none of something emotionally. People use it constantly during casual daily conversations publicly.
Exactly. And contractions like not even a little sound very natural. Native speakers use relaxed emotional language during conversations constantly. That is why listening practice helps learners so much, honestly.
Then, finally, we walked toward the check-in counters together peacefully. And honestly, the airport already looked unbelievably crowded afterward publicly. People were dragging suitcases everywhere while rushing dramatically somehow.
The check-in line looked extremely long and emotionally exhausting, honestly. Families, tourists, business travelers, and sleepy students stood everywhere publicly. And honestly, everyone looked slightly stressed afterward somehow.
Because airports create emotional panic for humanity, honestly. People suddenly forget passports, tickets, and basic walking abilities publicly. Travel honestly changes human personalities very quickly somehow.
Then, honestly, it became our turn at the counter afterward. And listeners, this is where important travel English begins naturally. Airport conversations follow very common patterns daily.
The airport worker smiled politely and said, "Can I see your passport?" And honestly, this phrase appears constantly during international travel publicly. Travelers hear it at airports, hotels, and border checkpoints daily.
Exactly, and airport English is usually clear and professional overall. Workers ask short, important questions during check-in conversations publicly. Learning these phrases helps travelers feel much calmer emotionally.
Then, honestly, disaster almost happened immediately afterwards somehow. I suddenly could not find my passport inside my backpack publicly, and honestly, my soul temporarily left my body afterward emotionally.
Listeners, his face looked absolutely terrified in that moment, honestly. Meanwhile, the airport worker remained perfectly calm and professional publicly. Henry, however, became emotionally dramatic immediately afterwards somehow.
Because losing passports at airports feels emotionally life-ending, honestly. My brain immediately created 5 disaster movies within 3 seconds publicly. Meanwhile, my passport was literally inside my jacket pocket somehow.
That honestly felt deeply embarrassing publicly. Then the airport worker smiled politely while trying not to laugh emotionally. And honestly, I almost started laughing immediately afterwards somehow.
Because apparently, my suffering becomes comedy for everyone emotionally. Honestly, airports already contain enough stress without accidental passport drama publicly. Traveling keeps testing my emotional stability constantly somehow.
Then, honestly, we finally received our boarding passes peacefully afterward. And listeners, boarding pass is an important travel vocabulary word. You need it before entering the airplane.
Exactly. And honestly, airports have so many travel words emotionally. Boarding pass, luggage, security check, departure gate, carry-on bag. Travel English honestly becomes its own little world somehow.
Then we started walking toward the airport security together quietly. And honestly, security lines always feel emotionally stressful somehow publicly. Even innocent people suddenly become nervous there.
Because security workers stare into your soul emotionally, honestly. Suddenly, people forget basic instructions like removing laptops publicly. Airports honestly create temporary emotional confusion for everybody somehow.
That is honestly very true emotionally. Then a security officer looked at Henry very seriously afterward publicly, and honestly, this next moment became unbelievably funny somehow.
Because apparently, I forgot a water bottle inside my backpack emotionally. The security officer held it up dramatically like evidence publicly. Meanwhile, I looked emotionally guilty for absolutely no reason.
Listeners, airports have very strict liquid rules, honestly. And honestly, Henry looked personally offended after losing his water. That emotional attachment honestly surprised me somehow.
Because hydration matters emotionally during travel, honestly. Also, airport water costs the same as small luxury apartments publicly. Travel honestly becomes financially dramatic very quickly somehow.
Then, finally, we reached our departure gate together peacefully afterward. And listeners, boarding areas create interesting English conversations publicly. Travelers often talk with strangers during long waits somehow.
Exactly, because airports bring random people together emotionally. Different countries, languages, stories, and personalities meet in one place publicly. Travel honestly makes the world feel smaller somehow.
Then, suddenly, an older traveler sitting beside us smiled warmly, and honestly, he started a casual conversation with Henry afterward publicly. This is another common travel situation for English learners.
The man smiled and asked, "Where are you headed?" Listeners, this phrase means asking where somebody is traveling publicly. Native speakers use it constantly during airport conversations.
Exactly, and travel conversations often begin very casually and warmly. People ask about destinations, vacations, flights, and travel plans. Simple questions create easy conversations during long airport waits.
Then, honestly, I answered much more confidently afterward emotionally. I said, "We're going to Istanbul for a short vacation." And honestly, speaking felt surprisingly comfortable this time publicly.
Because confidence grows through practice and repeated conversations, honestly. The more English situations you experience, the easier communication becomes publicly. Traveling honestly improves speaking confidence very quickly somehow.
Exactly, because travelers cannot hide silently forever emotionally. Eventually, you must ask questions, order food, and solve problems publicly. Real situations honestly force communication skills to grow somehow.
Then, suddenly, the airport speaker announced boarding information loudly, and honestly, everybody near the gate immediately stood up. Humans honestly become emotionally competitive during airplane boarding somehow.
Because people act like airplane seats might disappear emotionally. Everybody rushes toward the gate with dramatic urgency publicly. Travel honestly transforms peaceful adults into emotional action heroes somehow.
That is painfully accurate, honestly. Then we grabbed our bags and joined the boarding line together publicly. And honestly, our travel adventure was only beginning afterward. All right, everybody, welcome back to our travel adventure today. Henry somehow survived airport security and emotional water bottle loss publicly. And honestly, his dramatic suffering entertained me a little afterward.
Because airports honestly attack human emotions constantly somehow. First, security takes your water, then airplanes steal leg space publicly. Traveling honestly builds emotional strength very quickly somehow.
Then finally, we entered the airplane together peacefully afterward. And honestly, the cabin already looked crowded and noisy publicly. People were searching for seats and lifting heavy bags everywhere.
And honestly, airplanes create social chaos immediately somehow. People suddenly block entire aisles while emotionally fighting luggage publicly. Travel honestly becomes survival training sometimes.
Then a flight attendant smiled warmly toward us afterward, publicly. And listeners, flight attendants use many useful English phrases daily. Airplane English sounds polite, calm, and professional overall.
Exactly. The flight attendant smiled and said, "Can I help you?" Listeners, this phrase appears everywhere during travel situations publicly. Hotels, airports, restaurants, and tourist places use it constantly.
Then, honestly, Henry struggled putting his backpack overhead emotionally. The bag looked strangely heavy for absolutely no reason publicly. And honestly, nearby passengers started watching the situation afterward somehow.
Because apparently I packed unnecessary emotional support snacks, honestly. Travel honestly makes people pack like civilization might collapse publicly. My backpack weighed emotionally more than my future somehow.
Then, finally, we sat down near the airplane window peacefully afterward. And honestly, Henry immediately became emotionally excited publicly. Apparently, airplane windows create instant happiness somehow.
Because window seats feel emotionally powerful, honestly. You suddenly become a philosopher while staring at clouds publicly. Travel honestly creates dramatic emotions for simple things somehow.
Then the man sitting beside Henry smiled politely afterward, publicly. And honestly, he immediately started casual small talk somehow. Travel conversations happen constantly during long flights together.
The man smiled and asked, "Is this your first time visiting Istanbul?" Listeners, this is extremely common travel conversation English publicly. Travelers love discussing destinations and experiences together.
Exactly. And honestly, travel conversations usually feel very friendly overall. People become more open and social during trips publicly. New places create excitement and emotional energy somehow.
Then, honestly, I answered more confidently this time afterward. I said, yes, I've always wanted to visit there. And honestly, speaking felt much easier than before publicly.
Because repeated conversations build confidence very quickly, honestly. Travel forces people into real communication situations constantly publicly. That practice improves speaking skills faster than people expect somehow.
Then suddenly, the airplanes started moving slowly afterward, emotionally. And honestly, everybody became unusually quiet for a moment publicly. Airplane takeoffs honestly feel emotionally dramatic every single time somehow.
Then the flight attendant made another important announcement publicly. She said, "Please fasten your seatbelts." Listeners, this phrase is extremely important during flights.
Exactly, and travel English contains many safety instructions publicly. Fasten your seatbelt, remain seated, and keep your belongings nearby emotionally. Learning these phrases helps travelers feel calmer during trips.
Then, honestly, Henry grabbed the armrest dramatically during takeoff publicly. And honestly, his face looked emotionally stressed afterward somehow. Apparently, airplanes still scare him slightly sometimes.
Because humans honestly should not fly through clouds emotionally. Birds make it look emotionally too easy publicly. Meanwhile, I emotionally question physics during every flight somehow.
That is honestly so dramatic emotionally. Then, finally, the airplane reached a peaceful altitude afterward, publicly. And honestly, everybody slowly relaxed again somehow.
Then honestly, I started feeling hungry emotionally. Travel somehow makes people hungry every 2 hours publicly. Airports and airplanes honestly confuse normal eating schedules completely.
Then, the flight attendants started serving food peacefully afterward. And listeners, ordering and accepting food creates useful English practice publicly. Simple travel conversations happen constantly during long flights.
Because landing creates emotional excitement, honestly. People suddenly remember vacations, hotels, food, and adventure publicly. Travel honestly wakes people up emotionally somehow.
Then we entered the huge airport in Istanbul together afterward. And honestly, everything looked beautiful, bright, and busy publicly. Different languages echoed everywhere around us somehow.
And honestly, international airports feel emotionally fascinating somehow. You hear accents, conversations, and cultures mixing together publicly. Travel honestly reminds people how big the world is.
Then, suddenly, we faced another important travel situation publicly. We needed help finding the train station outside the airport afterward. And honestly, this is where useful travel English helps greatly.
Exactly, because travelers constantly ask strangers for directions emotionally. Travel conversations become necessary during confusing situations publicly. Confidence honestly grows through these little moments somehow.
Then I walked toward an airport worker politely afterward, and honestly, I used another very common travel phrase publicly. I asked, "Excuse me, could you help us?"
Listeners, this phrase is extremely useful everywhere publicly. Travelers use it at airports, hotels, restaurants, and tourist places emotionally. Polite questions make conversations much easier overall.
Then the airport worker smiled warmly and listened carefully afterward. And honestly, she explained the directions very clearly publicly. People usually become very kind when travelers ask politely.
Exactly, and honestly, that realization helped my confidence emotionally. Most people actually want to help confused travelers publicly. Fear becomes smaller after positive conversations like these somehow.
Then, finally, we reached the train station outside peacefully afterward. The evening air felt cool while city lights glowed beautifully publicly. And honestly, the entire city looked magical somehow.
Then, honestly, I became emotionally excited all over again publicly. Travel creates tiredness and excitement at the exact same time somehow. Human emotions honestly become confusing during vacations.
That is painfully accurate emotionally. Then, finally, we boarded the train toward our hotel afterward publicly. And honestly, the city looked incredible through the windows somehow.
People walked through busy streets while cafes stayed open late. Music, lights, conversations, and traffic filled the atmosphere emotionally. Travel honestly creates unforgettable memories from simple moments somehow.
Then, honestly, Henry became strangely emotional during the train ride publicly. He quietly stared outside while smiling to himself afterwards somehow. And honestly, I noticed the change immediately emotionally.
Because honestly, traveling changes people emotionally sometimes. You leave normal routines and suddenly experience completely different worlds publicly. That feeling honestly becomes inspiring somehow.
That is such an important truth about travel, honestly. People learn confidence, independence, and communication through these experiences publicly. Even nervous English learners grow stronger during trips somehow.
Exactly, because traveling forces people to communicate bravely emotionally. You ask questions, solve problems, and talk with strangers publicly. That practice honestly improves confidence faster than people expect somehow.
Then, finally, we arrived at our hotel together peacefully afterward. And honestly, both of us looked emotionally exhausted publicly. Travel days honestly become longer than people expect somehow.
But honestly, I also felt really proud emotionally. A few years ago, travel conversations scared me completely publicly. Now, English felt much more comfortable during real situations somehow.
Because confidence grows through action and experience, honestly. Every small conversation helps learners become stronger emotionally. Real communication improves fluency much faster than silent studying publicly.
And listeners, honestly, please do not fear speaking during travel publicly. Mistakes happen to everyone during trips, emotionally. The important thing is continuing conversations bravely somehow.
Exactly. People care more about communication than perfect grammar, honestly. Friendly energy and confidence matter much more during travel publicly. Most travelers and workers simply want clear conversations somehow.
Thank you, everybody, for traveling with us during today's adventure publicly. We survived airports, flights, spicy travel stress, and emotional luggage moments somehow. Honestly, this trip created unforgettable memories afterward.
And listeners, next time you travel somewhere new publicly, try using some of today's English phrases confidently during conversations. Every small interaction helps your confidence grow emotionally.
And honestly, if airport chaos happens during future trips publicly, please remember my emotional support snack backpack story afterwards somehow. Travel honestly becomes much funnier later, emotionally.